thumbs up when we're going.
Okay, we're recorded, and then let's see. Let's see.
So it's going to start with you. Let's seeing, I guess, is how it's.
Yeah, it's
All right.
always, let's see what
All right.
happens.
So we're going to get started while you're let's
Yeah,
see.
get started.
All right. We got a big night. I'm so excited. I've been thinking about this one for a long time, Kate. Tonight we've completely shifted to the other side. As you probably know, we talk mostly about couples, relationships, parenting issues, and that sort of thing. So we're going to dial it to a different direction. We're here with Kate O'Connor, DC's, as you call yourself, love guru, right? And
Yes.
with It's Just Lunch DC, a local matchmaker, an awesome, awesome young woman who Julie and I met, right, at WJLA last year when we kicked off our book tour that didn't last very long because of the pandemic.
I think it was like
the same sort of love episode, right?
Yep, it was, I think, Valentine's Day special. So it was literally like a few weeks before the pandemic.
Yes, it was you. It was you and us, and there was that woman who did that really sexy workout with her husband or whoever it was.
Yeah,
that was. Yeah, I had trouble looking away. That was good too. So Kate, just a little bit about you. I know you've got a background in medicine, right? And so before we talk more about it, it's always our couples cocktail hour. So cheers. What are you drinking tonight?
Cheers. I've got Pinot Noir tonight.
Very nice.
A lot of it.
Julie, you're fighting a cold, so
yeah, fighting a little cold.
Okay,
so I'm on the wagon.
Drinking ice water. So I've got my sort of, even though it's not summer, a little summer whiskey, light bullet bourbon, and my usual little mini Rolling Rock that I like to
nice.
with that. So Kate, you have a background in medicine. What did you do?
Well, so I am one of those where I'm obsessed with skin, and I always I don't know what it is with me, but just always enjoyed wearing sunblock or even going and getting a tan. But I also just have a weird thing with skin. So I went to school originally because I wanted to be a dermatologist. That was the game plan. And then I ended up going a weird route to EMT. I've had a lot of weird routes, but I went and studied EMT. And I ended up doing wound care instead. So not exactly the route, but I was working with a lot of patients who were just getting amputations or avoiding an amputation, people with radiation wounds. And so I would see them every day. And I feel like, I feel like I have to do that all the time. But just in general, talking with them all the time, seeing different experiences, again, seeing them every day, going through life experiences, I think I started to realize the right things that you need in your life, like what you need to get past if it's something that's like making you feel like you're about to fail. And it just, I don't know, it opened up a lot of doors, I feel like, for me to start seeing the beauty in life and just like connections and how important they are. And
so how did that connect you to the world of matchmaking and the singles scene?
Well, I've been doing this since I was in my 20s. We had a receptionist that was coming in one day. She just got dumped, and she was just my friend at the time, but she was telling me what she was looking for. And I was like, wait a minute, my guy friend from high school, I feel like would be a good fit. Haven't talked to him in a bit, but let me call him and see, because I think you would like him. And it ended up they went on a blind date and they got married 2 years later. They just had their second child right now, but they're they stretched that out. They've got a 5-year-old daughter, but it was just one of those things where after that happened, it was a joke, but also not really, because I feel like I'm just really good at that stuff. So it was always there. And while I was doing my healthcare deal, I just saw something online for being a matchmaker, and I thought it would be fun. And it was a little bit more than that, because I think I just realized I was good at it. And, I knew exactly what people needed. So I dropped healthcare, and here I am.
Here you are. Okay.
So how long have you been doing matchmaking?
This is going to be my 6th year going into it. So it's been a bit, but if we're talking about long-term, then we're talking about 12 years. So
wow.
Yep.
So
Very
before
cool.
we get into some details, what's like a good success rate, or what is a success? Actually, before you even get to that, what does a success mean in your business?
Success is going on hold to explore a relationship, which means we're not setting you up with anyone else. If you say that, that's always going to be success. But always whenever a client calls and they say that they're engaged or they're going to cancel because there is no one else for them, that's always going to be
Oh,
success too.
yeah.
But gosh, there's other things too. Like I was talking with a client who was a widower the other day, and she's been working with me for 6 months. She hasn't had her lucky ending, but like she also hasn't dated in like 50 years. Okay, maybe not 50, but like 40 years.
Yeah.
And that's a huge success for her to even do that. So I'm just happy to like be on her journey with her. There's
That's
a
so
lot.
cool. That's so
Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's
Very neat.
great.
So,
And what
so
actually inspired us to think about having you come on and talk about that is I have a single friend that's like, you need to cater to the singles. You need to talk to about relationships and, helping people find love like later, like later in life.
Yeah.
We were just talking about.
Mhm.
And she's like, don't you have anybody and whatever. And then I thought, oh man, we met that awesome matchmaker. She'd be fun to have on.
Oh
yeah,
yeah. Oh, I can
so
have stories for
I know,
days, I'm sure.
yeah, I know you have like certain areas that you focus on, but and we want to ask you about those. But
Yeah, for sure.
in terms of, let's just talk about a typical situation. Forget that Julie's with me for the moment. I need to find somebody. We also want to talk about the pandemic and how that's affected your
Yeah.
business and so forth. But
Mhm.
then, what does it look like? I tap a note online to you, or I call. What happens? What do you do? How do you try to help someone find who they're looking for?
So, really, we scratched the surface in that first phone call because I'm never going to learn enough about someone after just interviewing them. So, what I do is I have a detailed conversation with anyone who reaches out to me, and we have to make sure this is even a fit because some people are expecting unrealistic expectations, and that would be setting myself up for failure, I feel. So that's something where I have to make sure that everyone has realistic expectations if I take them on. But
Mhm.
basically from there, if I know this is going to be a good fit, then I want to get to know you, and I'm like your best friend or your sister, whatever you want to call it. And I'm getting down to the nitty gritty to see, who do you like, who do I think you're going to be attracted to, who are you going to have a connection with. I think, like, obviously you want somebody who's going to make you laugh, but that's really the next steps of how this will work, is figuring out who this person is.
Mhm.
But usually they
Are you a little bit like a psychologist in some ways?
I mean, I feel like it. I feel
Yeah,
like
because you're really trying to get like into the person's head, into like what makes them tick.
yes. And you have to
Yeah.
figure out like why they feel certain ways. Like,
Yeah.
why do they believe that this is what's good for them? And that's also something I have to understand, because there are certain situations that it would make sense. But
Yeah.
my one of the biggest things for this year that I've been doing is trying to open people up, and like, this is a new world we're living in. Like, go explore. So that's also part of figuring out who the right match is. We get feedback after every date. So like, I know what people are doing. I
Mhm.
know what their dates are saying. And like, I know what they like, what they don't, what's a
Mhm.
deal breaker and what's not. And usually as we go, we get closer. So it's definitely a process, but it's an experience that can be a lot of fun if you go into it with an open mind.
So after the date, your client and whomever the other person is sort of reports back to you.
Mhm.
Is that confidential? In other words, you share that with each side, with
So
each of
it
them?
is, yeah, it's confidential, but you can have something, depending on which option you choose, where you can hear feedback. Some people don't want to hear it in that way. And it's like, that's their choice. Some people, I will want to know, especially if I was doing it and going all out,
Yeah.
I will want to know what feedback is going on. But it is confidential, and obviously we're not going to say, what's not helpful for the client,
So just give me an example, so like what would be some things that you would get a report, like they talk too much or they didn't talk enough
yeah, of
or
course,
they,
like too stiff, wouldn't stop talking.
Mm,
There is definitely like good feedback that there was chemistry and like
uh,
same conversation or interest, but there can also just
What
be.
if what if you get like bad breath? He had bad breath or
yeah, does that
something.
happen?
I had that one time back in the day. That did happen one time back in the day. And I was like, I don't even know what to say. What if he was garlic the night before or something like that? I don't know, but
Well, what
that's some,
about like body odor or something? Like, do you tell the
um,
people like, it was reported that you felt that?
so honestly, I one time had feedback for a client when he came in because it was like I could not stop smelling that for almost a day and a half. It had lingered in the office, and it was just one of those things where that was something where that would be very off-putting or
Yeah.
distracting, but that's not something I've heard a lot for feedback. I would say you're always going to get the height feedback. Oh, they were too too short or not as tall as they sounded like. And
Uh-huh.
everyone is going to see somebody differently depending on where you're at, first of all. But yeah, we get all sorts of feedback. We really do.
So,
That's
so,
interesting.
so someone, your client goes on that first date, whether he or she, and goes on the first date, and then you get the feedback, and it wasn't a success, it wasn't a disaster, and then so how do you take that information to push that person toward the next stop? I mean, I'm like you said, I can't imagine you every single time, or I'm got to be a small percentage when somebody meets somebody the first time, and then boom, this is great, Kate, we're done with
Yeah.
you, we're doing
It
great.
happens, but it's also, this is a fine tuning process. So that's literally what feedback is for. If you say, hey, maybe let's just pretend this guy, like I went out with him and we were having fun, but he was really like sarcastic and like giving me dad jokes, and I'm not into that. I'm really just not. And that's something where like it's not like psychology or like dad jokes, but I can just know, oh my god, this guy is giving really corny dad jokes, don't do it, I'm not gonna like it or whatever. But that's an example where we can fine tune it and get even more specific. Location is even something too, where a lot of people are like, I live in Bethesda and they live in Fairfax, or just somewhere else, and it's like a small piece of feedback there, but we will still coach them if we don't feel like it's really serving them, especially if there's potential out there. We don't want them to give up on that just because of like a bad date.
So what is there, like one or two factors that you would say are like high predictability pieces that you look for when you try to make a match?
Yeah, I mean, it's really personality. And I think that's why matchmaking works with us, is like we really dive deep. This is not so much about looking at a piece of paper. This is going with intuition and like feeling. So for me, I totally go off of personality and like who is going to be on that same page communication wise.
Mhm.
After that, it's going to be more about lifestyle, like who's working out, who's active.
Mhm.
Some people are not, and like other people, maybe they're really into politics, and other people, maybe they're just really into going out to restaurants and like being social and talking about anything and everything. So lifestyle and just personality are definitely the top two I would focus on.
When do
So
you, go
yeah,
ahead,
go
Julie.
ahead. Oh, okay, I'll go ahead because I just had this question about like, did you have a lot of difficulty with the politics, like people being on different, sides, and did you have to pay attention to that? Because this, people are divided. So
Yes.
was that a big factor in your work that you do?
Yeah, but it was weird because I expected it to be worse the second time around, and it wasn't. The first election was awful, and it's so weird. I was actually out in Seattle, Washington, doing this out there for a little bit, and I grew up in the DC area, and like people would be like, "Oh my gosh, what is it like back home?" And I'm like, "Probably not as bad as it is out here." Like it's different scenes, but just in general, politics are hard around the elections, especially when people are passionate, but I'm not seeing it at all right now. I think everyone is okay, I think we're okay. I think we're
Mhm,
talking,
mhm,
so it's making it a little bit more open, I
mhm.
would say.
I know one of your focuses is on people who are separated or divorced. So I
Hmm.
want to ask you about that.
Okay.
And also about, the differences in age. I mean, I assume that you attack someone who's single and 24. Attack is a bad word. That's the lawyer in me. You evaluate someone who's single, 24, 26,
Yeah.
28 differently than you do someone who's 47 and was
Mhm.
married for 13 years and has two children, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what goes into your thinking and what you're looking to do and how you try to find those different people their own different places.
Yeah. I think I'm going to start with your first question because it definitely ties in, I feel like, to your second question. But I specialize in separation and divorce because when I was 29, I was going through my separation and divorce. And, you know, that's another reason that I do this is I know I made some choices that I don't regret, but I learned from them, and I went through my own relationships, so I learned a lot from it, and I can see it from other people. I can see what's coming for them, especially for young women who are being taught you got to get married, you got to have babies at the age of 31. Like, and that's not actually what creates happiness, is being in a rush. So, when we have women that are coming to us that are in their early 20s, I really have to see where they're at, because they might not even be ready for that step too. They're so young.
Mhm.
But there's also some very mature 24-year-olds that are definitely ready for marriage. Same thing with men, but I just think that's like such a interesting time of your life when you are working and like building your career,
Mhm.
and just you're still growing up. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, like, I love working with younger singles, not necessarily that they have to be separated or divorced, but just
Mhm.
because I've been in their shoes. And then post separation, I'm going through a marriage where I've learned a lot there. And then I'm stepping back out into dating, which is the scariest thing ever,
Mhm.
because you expect that you're going to be with that one person for the rest of your life. You teach yourself to not look elsewhere, and all of a sudden you're doing it. You have to do it.
Mhm.
And it's just something that I had no one's help because I was the youngest divorcee of all of my friends.
Mhm.
But I learned all these things where I was like, I could teach some people
Yeah.
a lesson or two just from what I went through, and then
Yeah.
post divorce, and just like today, that's why I love working with singles in that area, because I get it and I see that it can be fun if you do it right. So
Mhm.
that's really where the specialized department goes there. But now for clients that are older, that like are even in their 60s and 70s, I have clients in their 80s, and like I don't know what was happening back in the 60s, but I'm sure it was fun, and like I love history and documentaries and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think if you have someone who's really caring, and I care about what people have to say, I think it's really interesting, because if I can benefit you, then I want to help you.
Mhm.
So like I don't really look at any demographic as a problem until we've had a conversation to see if it makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, so I have several questions about what you said. First of all, there was a quote that you said that I really liked, which was, "You don't find happiness in rushing." Is that the way you
Yeah.
put it? I like
Yeah.
that a lot. DB, write that down because
Yes, ma'am.
I'll forget what it is. You don't find happiness in rushing. I like that a lot.
The rushing part is fun, but it's after that that's not
Yeah.
so fun,
So the other thing that came up that I was questioning was, so if you do have like somebody younger coming to you that, maybe really isn't ready to get married, but feels like they're in a hurry because of their biological clock, especially a woman, do you ever suggest like refer them to, put their eggs in storage or something like that? I mean, has that ever happened?
I will use that as a way if people are feeling like that's a belief system that they have to do this, and it's like, I
Mhm.
actually will say this to men that believe that women have to have children under the age of 30. And I'm like, that's just ridiculous. But like, are you also able to have children after, like, where you're at, to make sure both sides are good? But for women that are so fearful of that, especially if their parents are putting pressure, then I say, well, why don't you ask your parents to go like invest in freezing your eggs? They will do it. They will. If they're putting the pressure on you, then they should pay for it.
Yeah.
Otherwise you do you. That's the advice I give them.
Yeah.
So as a divorce lawyer, my sort of main, I don't want to say the only folks I represent, but what's over the plate for me, generally I've found is, anywhere from mid to late 40s to late 50s women. That tends to be my practice right now. And so, I'm curious to know what you tell those, that person, Mary. So let's just pick a name. Mary, I've been married since I was 22. I'm 51. I've been married 29 years. My kids are grown. They're out. They're in college. The only person I ever really dated, slept with, spent time with is this person who I've now just divorced. I don't know how to meet people. I don't want to be by myself. What do I do? What do you tell her?
First of all, good thing you called me, because it sounds like you need some support, and that's it. You need some support and you're totally lost. And my guess is if she's calling or he's calling, that they might not have the best options that are being presented, or somebody that's not really giving them maybe some confidence of, you should go do this. You should go put yourself out there. Maybe people are like, you need to wait. Maybe you need to wait, so that's a big thing right there for someone to reach out. But having a team to like break it down, I know that that's so important. While you do this, it's going to help you figure out again what you're even doing. You're going to learn something about yourself too, that you like in a relationship potentially, or like what you don't want. That's like, so I would just say it's baby steps, it's but there's always room for success. One of my clients during the pandemic, she was one of my first pandemic clients, and her second date, I set her up, and they both were freshly divorced. And I think they were both in the same place of, I don't really know what to expect, but I'm not finding anyone. And they're still together right now. But it was one of those things where I'm thinking about what I told her. And it was just honestly like, let's just do this and see what happens. You have nothing to lose. And I've got some awesome ideas I think that you're going to like, and we'll just figure it out. But I'm here with you.
Yeah. So how has your business, changed with the pandemic? What did you see? What were some of the patterns and trends?
It's been a roller coaster, to say the least. I will say back in March, we were still doing in-person dates, and I don't know what date it was, but it was almost like all of a sudden everyone was calling, putting their membership on hold or canceling their dates. And just people were thinking the world was ending. So they're like, I'm not leaving my house. I'm not doing any of that. So, we've been in business for 30 years. Well, we were in 29 years back then. But we've always done in-person dates. That's all we've ever done. That's all we've ever known. And we had to take the switch to Zoom dates because we can't stop dating just because of the pandemic, basically. So, we started the Zoom. And that's when we started getting people to come back, and I will say there's a lot of people that were going through like highly stressful events, especially a lot of people getting laid off or just like really worried about their career. And because matchmaking is an investment, it's definitely something that people were putting on the back burner.
Yeah.
But come January 1st, it started to like pick up. And then February hit and it started to pick up again.
Yeah.
And then last month hit and it was just like, we were just freaking taking off to the moon. And this month has been insane, but it's truly just vaccinations are happening. People are still going out and meeting up in person. It's just now we're not as afraid and we know how to do it without being stupid, I guess, like we can do it safely. So
are you hearing people that will only date somebody that's been vaccinated?
Not yet, that I'm sure that's going to come up and it's something we know. But I also feel like I haven't met somebody who's like, I'm not getting vaccinated. And I'm sure I will. I'm sure I will, but it's not quite there yet. Maybe
Right,
like in the summer, if it becomes a thing, it could become a thing, you know, for us, but not so much. And that's also the good part about Zoom is you can screen it and make sure
Yeah.
that you're
Mhm.
comfortable meeting them.
Yeah.
So another thing that you do, I know, is you spend some time date coaching with men.
Yes. Well,
How's that go for a good looking young woman?
well, you have to. I love working with guys because part of it is I am a female, but I feel like I've got some masculine energy up in here. And so with my female and masculinity that I have, I feel like some guys need this. And I love doing that to them. That's my favorite thing to do is smack them into shape. So that's why guys like this is sometimes they don't have that. They have somebody that's telling them exactly what they're doing right. And like that doesn't work for men. That doesn't work for them. So I enjoy having those conversations with clients where I'm not being mean on purpose, but I'm like, let's do this. Are you looking to have success? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, all right, let's go. Like, it's like a football coach little aspect.
Yeah.
But I love it. And it's just, you know, it's the way that they have success. We have a coaching program that I push them to do as well. But just as the matchmaker, I love being here to, you know, give them that real advice. And that's just fun. That's just included basically if you ask for it.
Yeah.
So
That's interesting. So so David's asked you questions from the divorce lawyer, and I'm also thinking about as a therapist, you know, I have to give some advice. You know, people that have like ADHD or autism spectrum, high functioning autism that are trying to date, and some of the things that they may do, you know, do that people don't like. And that's a real, you know, that's really hard, you know, for people that have, you know, something, you know, not just everybody has something, but if you have something like, you know, that's hard for you, you know.
it is. And that's actually something like, so I have some clients that are on the spectrum, but
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
yeah. And like, the thing is these are clients that are like, they're definitely, they deserve it, number one, but these are like small actual social cues that if I tell them, they cut it out. One of the clients that didn't have him yet, but we were just talking and I was asking him how he was meeting women. And he was telling me the locations and I was just like that, but you're never going to find like a woman in those places that you're looking.
Yeah.
And he was going into more detail, but I was like, you can't. So I was like, we're going to talk about this. Say what?
Burger King or the local, you know,
Hooters.
fast food.
It was Hooters.
Yeah.
It was Hooters. I'll just say it. It was Hooters.
No,
And I was like, look, you cannot talk about Hooters on a date, you know, but like for him, he's just thinking it's a restaurant, you know, but like I said to him, I was like, if someone's going to go on a date with you, they're going to picture you sitting at a bar getting served wings by a bunch of Hooters waitresses and like really being into that. But that's not what women who are ready to get married are looking for, you know? And so that's the advice. He needed it that way. And it was like, it's just a couple of little shape ups there, you know, but they're open to it. They want this a lot. And if they're doing something that's not going to work for them, they're open to hearing the advice.
Yeah, I think that's great because they could be on a million dating apps, but they're never going to get the feedback. They're just going to get no second dates. They're just that guy was weird and that was it, or that girl was off or whatever.
Yeah.
So you really have an ability to give people direction, which is, I think, amazing. It's almost like you know, well, it is like a coaching service, but it's more than that. It's fabulous.
It's like a ball of you know, dating, I guess. I don't know, ball of dating. It's a ball of fun. And I look at it as basically taking your love life to the next level, which is just the ultimate level.
So let me shift for a second to what you can't talk about on TV, right? And we know you've been on a bunch of TV shows, a lot of interviews. How does sex play into all of this? You know, with your clients who come to you because they want to meet someone because they want to have sex with them, or they had sex with a date and it was a disaster. You know, how does that play into the dynamic?
you got to figure out, sexual energy is important, right? Like I do say attraction is going to be super important when I am finding matches. However, like I don't screen for sexual intimacy, because then I'm going to need to have a video of like what went wrong, and I don't. So that's basically where
Great.
like I wish I could be a fly on the wall, but I basically have to take words at face value. But there could also be something going on that made it so bad that that person is doing wrong too, you know?
Yeah.
But there's also, you know, I think some people don't know how to handle that after sex situation, or like if you've had sex and you're not interested anymore, you feel like a jerk, or just like, you know, I don't want to hurt this person. So that's, I think, where we can actually like walk through conversations. Like I'm here for some juicy details and whatnot to give some advice, but you know, people are going to do, oh, I just got scared over here, but people are going to do whatever they want to do, basically.
So do
Part
people,
of the equation. I mean, it's part of the equation, I imagine, at least some of the time.
Yeah, I mean, people have sex. People have sex.
do people do
Not
so
having
people,
sex is kind of weird.
people report that back to you on a regular basis?
No, they don't. Like people will not tell me anything. And then I find out like 4 weeks later that they've been hooking up for like a month and that they're going to go on hold. And I had no clue. Like people do that. And I just don't know. Or like, I think that they're just going out on a date. And then I find out that they spent like a week away together. So, you know, but that's the thing is I don't get every success story. They don't always call me. Every single engagement I had this year, I had to call them.
Oh, really?
So they just forget. They're like living their life afterwards.
Yeah. People always going to tell you what went wrong, but that's so cool though. I love that. So have you ever been in a situation where like there's maybe parents or family members that want to hire you for somebody that's not coming to you and asking for help? What do you do with that? Like, let's just say you had a daughter that, you know, needed to meet somebody and she, you know, and what do you tell them?
I tell them how it will work, and I like get them excited. Clearly they're reaching out for their child, which I love. I think that's amazing. And again, they'll pay for it if they're like thinking that it's, you know, something that will make you happy. But typically after that, I have to talk to the person too, because again, if they're not going to be a fit for us, I can't take them on.
Right.
But if all checks out, it's the same thing as if they're going to be one of my clients. It's just their parent is going to be paying for the membership. So, but it's fun. And I had a dad this week that was doing it for his daughter. And it's just, it happens. We've had friends reach out for their friends too, to like get the details, or like just say, hey, can you call this person? I don't think she's going to. So, you know,
I feel like it's safer than the dating apps. I mean, I know that people have found people on the dating apps, and I'm not, you know, saying that those are bad things, but I just feel like you're screening, which is helpful on so many levels. I mean, safety and success.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
definitely. And this is the like hidden factor that a lot of people don't think about, because they're usually on the other end being like, I'm buying a matchmaker usually, or I'm paying for a matchmaker, but the other person is too. So they're like invested here at It's Just Lunch versus being on an app where it's like $25 a month.
Yeah.
If you're paying top dollar versus $29, which one would you go for if you're serious versus like, I'm just going to go and see what's available? That's kind of how I look at it.
Pictures.
Yeah. And you get to just do your own thing, but who the heck knows who you're going to swipe on, you know? So there's a lot that goes into it. That is why we are so safe, but we take care of our clients like they're our family members. So
Kate, we could talk to you for hours, right? So, but we can't, although we could.
That's all right. I get it.
One piece of advice to anyone out there that might apply to most people who are looking to find that person, what would that be?
Their soulmate.
Yeah. And it's really funny. I saw this today, this picture, and it was a puzzle piece. I'll send it to you guys if you want to post it, but it's a puzzle piece. and it's like all jagged. And then there's two puzzle pieces that fit together on the couch. And the two puzzle pieces on the couch are like, why haven't you found your person? And the person's like got a crazy cutout where it's like their puzzle piece is somewhere out there in this crazy old world. And it just made me realize that's very much accurate as to what I see. There are two types of puzzles. There are puzzles that are like baby puzzles that have like just two pieces and boom, they're together.
Yeah.
And then there's the like really challenging puzzle that's huge and it has a million pieces. And like, it doesn't matter, they all end and like have a stick, like a, you know, end puzzle piece that it all comes together. And that is the best way I can look at dating is you're going to have your own puzzle and you're going to put it together. It's just going to depend on what level you're at. So that's my best piece of advice is don't get too down on yourself. Some people are lucky.
Great. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yes.
And
so
if
great.
people want to get a hold of you, and I got a
Yeah, where do
feeling
they
that
find
they
you?
do, how do they get a hold of you?
So you can go to itsjustlunchdc.com. You can also text me directly at 202-466-2066. And you can say that you heard about me here. And that way, I know, I just like to track these kind of things.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can reach me directly there and I'll help get some stuff going.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on at the bottom
Yeah.
of my cocktail. So I'll have to re-up soon.
I need a
Kate,
catch
Julie
up.
is short on us tonight, but thank you so much. You've been
Thank
terrific.
you so much, Kate.
We
It
will
was
be
so good
back
to see you
next
again.
week. We'll be back next week together, presumably, Julie and I, dealing with whatever topic pops up for next week. But in the meantime, Kate, you've been terrific. Thanks so much.
Yeah, cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers.